a jumbo jet. It wasn't easy, but nothing is. No. When I feel heavy metal, and I feel that I need when I lie and I'm easy, all of the time, but I'm never sure why I need you. Please I need ya. I got my head done when I was young. It's not my problem. It's not my problem. When I feel heavy metal, and I feel that I need when I lie and I'm easy all of the time, but I'm never sure why I need you. Please I need ya.
Okay, good morning, everybody. How are we doing? It is Larsen Live. It is the day after, 2 days after Thanksgiving, and November 26th, and we are live. Yes, how was everybody's Thanksgiving? I'm not going to talk that much about our harvest festival in this country because, what else can we say? It's good as always, and, I will die on the hill that cranberry sauce is best when it's in cylindrical form right out of the can. Some people try to make their own cranberry sauce. Those people are heathens. It's got to come out of that can. That's the best cranberry sauce. Anyway, the song we started off with, that is Blur's Song 2, a title that I totally forgot, but I typed in woohoo on YouTube and I stumbled around for a few seconds and I found it. Yes, that song will always be the song that says association football to me. It's nice that on this particular Thanksgiving, multiple types of football were available to watch. Now, if we could just get Calcio Storico on the television, things would be great. But yes, Blur's Song 2. It either says soccer or a bunch of Angloids wanted to take the piss out of American grunge music and slap together some crap. And when I say crap, I mean the song was deliberately written to be kind of crappy, according to the guy who wrote the song. But yeah, that song says soccer to me. Yeah, it's soccer, England. Deal with it. With all due respect to Shakira, Waka Waka is vastly inferior to woohoo for gibberish phrases that signify association football. Yes, with all due respect, Ms. Mubarak, you might be a she-wolf, your bosoms might be small and humble, but Larsen's a child of the 90s, and Blur means La Copa Mundial in my eyes. Okay, you got a comment here. Tony Gilbert says that cranberry sauce has to come out of that can. Yes, I agree. I don't understand why anybody would want, homemade cranberry sauce. It's got to come out of that can. So yeah, for those of you who, are into the sports ball, I'm not super into the sports ball, but I do watch on occasion. Yeah, how about that World Cup in Qatar? It's a happening. I like to see America once again tie England in a, heroic but ultimately kind of futile draw. That always reminds me of the War of 1812, which many people on Twitter were talking about. But yeah, a World Cup in Qatar specifically. It's really great that they have those stadiums built by literal slave laborers. For those of you who are not aware, there's more slavery in the world right now than there was in the 1800s. But, the slavery is being committed by brown people now, so we can't talk about that. And much like their Olympic athletes, The Gulf states import their slaves from elsewhere, not their own countries. The slaves come from places like the Philippines, India, Nepal, and Bangladesh. Their Olympic athletes are bought and sold from the Horn of Africa. And yes, I do find it deeply amusing when I watch the Olympics and it's like, so and so, the Qatari athlete, and you're very obviously a, Kenyan Hamitic or a Somalian. You are not Qatari, sir. Now, obviously, I don't approve of slavery going on, as any good person would. Uh, I have to ask, about the people of Nepal specifically. Do the good people of Nepal not have any other opportunities for work? Are there no rich American hippies to Sherpa up the mountains? Does the British government not have enemy pillboxes to send Gurkhas running into head first? I mean, there's dignity in being a kukri swinging Gurkha. There is no dignity in doing slave labor for some oil sheik. But yeah, speaking of Gurkhas, those Arab sheiks ought to be introduced to the glory of the goddess of death, if you know what I mean. Yes, I do have an essentially Victorian conception of the good people of the Indian subcontinent. Okay, we got some comments here. Ponythroat says American football should be called handball. And I get really annoyed when they're like, oh, you should call it hand eggs. It's like an egg. You hold in your hand. It's an egg. Derp. For those of you who are not aware, American football is called football because it is played whilst standing on your feet. For many years in American culture, polo was one of the most popular sports. In fact, equestrian sports were very popular in America well into the 20th century. Horse racing was popular. Polo was very popular. Look at popular culture. Flash Gordon, the planetary romance hero. In the original stories, he was a polo player. In fact, Flash Gordon was very much a sort of blonde Adonis, like Hobie Baker, sort of like waspy college boy. He went to Yale and he played polo. Then, of course, when they made the movie Flash Gordon in the 80s, the culture changed so much they had to make him a football player because nobody was playing polo in the 80s. But yes, the point I'm trying to get at is polo was very popular in America for many years. And it was, the early, prototypes of football were called football because you played on your feet, as opposed to polo, which we could call horseball if you wanted to be very reductive about this sort of thing. American football is, of course, derived from ultimately the, Shrovetide, medieval football tradition, which is also where rugby, soccer, Australian football, and, those other things come from. Also, I'm going to mention again, Calcio Storico, which is a game that's literally played in, I believe, Florence, Italy. It's basically like medieval football combined with bare-knuckle boxing. Yeah, you run the ball and throw it around, but you can also just punch and kick people. The winner gets a cow. Yeah, there's a really good documentary series on Netflix called I think it's called like Local Game or like Home Game, something like that. It's Home Game. It's basically a documentary series in which they profile kind of obscure like weirdo sports from around the world. And I believe the first episode was about Calcio Storico. And they also do they do like kabaddi, they do like Basque stone lifting. It's really cool if you wanted to watch that. I always found these sort of local sports, like traditional sports, like much more interesting than the mainstream, commercialized sports. But that's just me. Okay, we got some comments here. Biff Slankovich says the summer temperature in Qatar was going up on the average as they built those stadiums. It went up 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, I know. Like people were literally getting heat stroke, dying of like kidney failure. Yeah, really sad what happened to these construction workers in Qatar. Tony Gilbert says it makes me mad that Middle Eastern countries buy Olympic competitors. Yes, they sure do. I mean, I understand why, from what I've gathered, like sports are not really a big thing in like these Gulf states, partially because of just how blisteringly hot it is. But then again, I also find that to not be an excuse considering that, the Horn of Africa produces the finest distance runners in the world, and they, it's just as hot there. Okay, Pony Throat says a Qatari would never hit the 100-meter dash unless there was a little boy at the end. Yeah, we're going to get to that in a little while. Um, okay, Tony Gilbert says Flash Gordon approaching. I mean, he is the savior of the universe. And yeah, yes, I do own a copy of the Flash Gordon movie, and I believe YouTube has the original Buster Crabs cereals too. Yeah, I mean, I like me some Flash Gordon, and I'm just gonna say it now. I'm really getting tired of people saying, isekai. This genre is called isekai. No, you weebs. The genre is called planetary romance. It's been called planetary romance since the American writer Edgar Rice Burroughs invented it in 1912. Ponythroat says, as opposed to most athletic pursuits that are played sitting on your ass. Well, yeah, I mean, if you want to be technical, we could call most games football because they involve some sort of ball and you're standing on your feet. I mean, except for golf. But then again, I don't really consider golf to be a sport at all. I consider golf to be a game, but not a sport. You can watch my video about professional laser tag if you want to see what in my opinion, is the lamest sport in the world. Okay, Tony Gilbert says polo is still popular in the Northeast in places. Well, yeah, again, I would assume that polo is still popular amongst these sort of like traditional, like waspy American, holdouts, which, exist around the Ivy League schools. Because, if you want to have sex with Muffy, you're going to have to put on your polo pants. Constance Fry, my friend. We're brothers to the end. I honestly miss the days when that sort of cultural milieu was still somewhat relevant. No, I said Tony Gilbert, Ponythroat. Ponythroat says, if you are playing a sport whilst on a horse, you are not an athlete. The horse is the athlete. Yeah, I've always said so myself. Those, like Olympic equestrian things, they should really give the medal to the horse. And dressage is bullshit, just FYI. We're talking about equestrian sports. It's, I always like that bit from Parks and Recreation where it's like, where, what's her face? Amy Poehler is like, yeah, so Eagleton has this department of like dressage, some kind of weird horse thing. And the guy's like, it is horse dancing, madam. Yeah, dressage is bullshit. I mean, if you want me to get interested in like the equestrian arts, and I say this with regret because several of the women in my life have been equestrians, but yeah, you should get rid of all that, fancy prancy crap in the Olympics. Yeah, put in polo. Honestly, put in Buzkashi if you want me to really get interested. Tony Gilbert says, Larsen, are you going to make more Kung Fail videos? At some point I will, but as I've discussed many times, I have a real actual job now and I have to do actual work, so I don't have time to do as much videos as I used to. Okay, Biff Slankovich talks about the FIFA, taking payoffs when Qatar successfully won the bid. Yeah, that's a lot of that going on. If you're a Arab oil sheik, you can just throw money around and you can get whatever you want. Some of the FIFA big shots like Jack Warner have just disappeared from sight after pocketing the payoffs. Yes, so I've heard. Ponythroat says several of Larsen's women were equestrians. They're from Equestria. Oh yeah, I was banging Twilight Sparkle all up and down. No, Ponythroat. Equestrian. Let me put that in the chat. Ladies who ride horses. Fletch Kyleman says, "God, see you're still 10 toes up there, Larsen. I know it's not how you spell your name. I'm dictating it to my phone. Regardless, glad to listen. Yes, I'm always here to provide some sort of content for you people every week. It may not be videos. And like I said, what will most likely happen is I'll start making more videos starting the next school year because I'll have all my lesson plans and stuff, planned out, and I won't have to. I could have a little more free time. Obviously the grading is the bulk of the crap a teacher has to do, but I'll I do have to spend at least a couple hours a week, actually formulating lesson plans. Yeah, so yeah, speaking of Gulf states throwing the money around, mind you, the people bankrolling these stadiums and paying off FIFA employees, these are the same guys who pay Instagram fitness girls and OnlyFans girls tens of thousands of dollars so that they and their boys could just run trains on them for the weekend. Is that website Tag the Sponsors still around? Because they would go into great detail about how these women would go to, Dubai in particular and just get, I mean, running trains on them is really the best way I can put it. Hence the term Dubai porta potty, because stuff like that is what goes on. But I'm sure the Qataris do it too. It's yeah, they really like paying off like really low moral white women to have a dog and pony show. Okay, Ponythroat says Larsen rides horses apparently. I mean, I have occasionally ridden horses. Horseback riding is much like ballroom dancing, one of those things that I got one free lesson out of due to, plowing the woman teaching the class. But then I didn't really hang around long enough to, get more lessons. I don't know, I'm not really that into horseback riding because I feel like it's kind of a moot point unless you own a horse, which I don't, and I don't have anywhere near enough money to buy a horsey. But I would like to get into ballroom dancing again at some point. Fletch Kyleman asks, Larsen, did you see The Woman King yet? No, I did not. To be honest, I don't really have much of an interest in watching it. I mean, I'm not that into a story which is somehow glorifying the Dahomey Amazons and saying that there's some sort of abolitionist fighting force when they are clearly not. Ponythroat says previous comment was about him dating women from Equestria. I'll leave the horse sex to you, sir. C-Punk Messiah says there's only two isekai that matter. They both involve badass karateka as protagonists. I have to look this up now. How? Because I don't know. How is isekai at all different from, a planetary romance? All right, so specifically, isekai refers to characters going into video games or some kind of role-playing game. Again, I'm going to call them planetary romances. Because that is much more dignified sounding than isekai. But yes, I did not see The Woman King. Also did not see the new Black Panther. I have little interest in either of those things. But yeah, going back to the Qatar thing, I don't know, there's like this news report about like the slave labor is dying off, and people are talking as if this hasn't been known for years. I mean, I knew about these, terrible shenanigans the sheiks get up to, the sheikh-nanigans, if you will. Whether it be the sexual misconduct or the slave labor. These clowns are the guys who buy tigers and like lions and things, which they don't take good care of. And whoops, the tiger accidentally tears some Filipino maid, limb from limb. And then, of course, they end up having to shoot these tigers and lions, as if it's the tiger's fault for acting like a tiger. I mean, to be honest, I support alternative fuels and alternative energies, and I think alternative fuels should be a bipartisan issue everybody should be behind. just so we can pitch those sheiks out on their asses. Like, look, those of you who lean more conservative, I know that environmentalists are just insufferable douchebags sometimes, but come on. You and I, we both want to see the Gulf aristocracy get bankrupted. Okay, Ponythroat says, does the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant count as isekai? I have no idea what that is. Tony Gilbert says, Larsen, where'd you get that clip of Spider-Man fighting Batman and Robin? That is actually from a YouTube video you could probably find. It's like, just look up a YouTube video of like, a compilation of like weird, bizarre, like MMA fights. I guarantee you that video will show up. Yeah, it was a clip from, I believe it was in the UK. Yeah, it was like a 2-on-1 MMA match where a guy dressed as Spider-Man fought two guys dressed as Batman and Robin. I'm not really sure like what, who came up with that brilliant idea, but it was funny, so I put it in the clip show. All right, so let's leave Qatar behind for a while. And let's talk about some news in America. Guess what happened again? Random spree shootings, this time in a gay club in Colorado Springs. The police, of course, knew about the threats this Colorado fat, disheveled loser was making for months previously, and they did nothing. Again, just like the Buffalo shooter, just like the Uvalde shooter. Again, what does the FBI do? Yeah, so it turns out that this shooter was non-binary, and he made bomb threats 8 months ago. Nobody did a damn thing, and he has a really weird-looking head. The back of his head is like oddly flat, like what happens when a baby is left on its back for too long. I'm gonna say the same thing I said back in, whatever June or whatever it was when that Uvalde shooting happened. Yeah, I support red flag laws, assuming that they're not used to do psychological abuse like the Soviet Union, which they probably would be. And yeah, I feel like we should err on the side of caution. I feel there should be stricter regulations on gun ownership to an extent. I mean, I ultimately do feel that a free people, do bear arms, but you should be really, strict and vigilant when it comes to mental health and things like that. Because if you're going to have gun ownership, you also have a responsibility to make sure that guns don't get possessed by, wackadoos. I'm just going to say, mass shootings really didn't start happening until the late 70s. I don't know why. I have some ideas, though. Oh, and by the way, speaking of bizarre MMA tie-ins, his father was Dick Delaware. That's not his real name. Drug-addled porn actor and mediocre Bush League MMA fighter in the Maryland regional scene. Because his story isn't insane enough. But yeah, I really do like how, his father was a drug-addled porn star and Bush League MMA fighter, and everyone's like, oh yeah, he's a conservative Republican. I have my doubts. Okay, let's see. We got some comments here. Ponythroat says the UK should put a naval blockade around Gulf state immigration centers again. Then it can be the Virgin Tacky Oil Chic Palace versus the Chad 17-inch naval shell. I presume you're referring to the Anglo-Zanzibar War, which lasted 38 minutes. But yeah, I mean, I do support just smacking the sheiks around. Then we have some comments about the FBI and the cops. Tony Gilbert says the cops never do anything unless a cop is being threatened. That is true. Ponythroat says, what does the FBI do? Mostly groom people into performing terrorist acts. That is also true. C-Punk Messiah, talking about the sheiks, says you think these truck fetishists would be all for hamstringing these sheiks. I assume you're talking about people who drive trucks, not the people who have sex with trucks. Both those things exist. I mean, I try not to drive places whenever possible. And also, I've been putting off answering this text message I got. Let me just answer this lady. There we go. All right, let's see. Yeah, so, bang up job, Dick Delaware. It turns out that drug-addled porn stars, not the best fathers. And, oh yeah, there was also another mass shooting in I believe, a Walmart in Virginia, but that one was committed by a black man, so it'll disappear from the media immediately if it hasn't already. Yeah, never gonna hear about that one again. And C Punk Messiah says he's talking about people who compensate for having bad dick game by having oversized trucks. Yes, yes. Many people compensate for their tiny penises by having large trucks or pit bulls or things like that. I drive a very fuel efficient Hyundai because I have nothing to compensate for. Wink. Yes. So, the country continues to go to hell in a handbasket. And speaking of inane American nonsense, the current government, Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary in particular, printed out, and I shit you not, a list of talking points to throw in your hypothetical uncle's face if he talks bad about Biden. Yeah, how dare, Uncle Bob bitch about the government. That's not what America's about, damn it. You can't complain about the government. It said, like, what if he says, Biden is inflating? Well, it turns out he's not inflating. Biden's adding jobs. Biden's doing this. Does anyone else find it really bizarre that the government has to print out, like, talking points to win, like, petty family arguments? And they're always talking about, like, oh, evil racist Uncle Bob at Thanksgiving. Who is this hypothetical uncle that everybody's supposed to fear? Uncle Bob is the Emmanuel Goldstein of modern America. I feel like so much of modern politics, both sides, because this is very bipartisan, involves inventing some kind of hypothetical boogeyman and spending all your time raging against this non existent person. The liberals, they have, like, MAGA Uncle Bob at Thanksgiving dinner, and the conservatives have, rainbow haired lunatics, smashing up things. Like, people, can we please, as the kids say nowadays, please touch grass? You know what that means? Like, please go outside, get some fresh air, like, get off the internet for a brief while, and, interact with the world and see that it's not as bad as it seems. Yeah, I think it's funny that I say that, considering that I literally just said 2 seconds ago that the country's going to hell in a handbasket. I mean, it kind of is, but it's not that bad. I mean, it's bad. It could be a lot worse. Let's put it that way. As if it's not very obviously becoming worse. And speaking of things that are getting worse, in science news, something I found interesting but also completely terrifying. A baby lamb was gestated and grown and born in an artificial womb, and I am having nightmares tonight. Let's look up more specifically what that is. Let's see. Yeah, it's a baby lamb, like, shrink wrapped in a little plastic thingy, and it's being born. It's a I mean, I understand that this is hypothetically a good thing. It could give, preemie babies, premature babies, a much greater chance at life. But I don't know. I see this going very badly, very quickly. Yeah. So what happened was, scientists at the Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, they successfully grew a lamb fetus in an artificial womb. I mean, I have to ask why exactly they're doing this. And yeah, like I said, I know it's supposed to be helping out the premature babies, but I don't know, if your mind did not immediately think of like the Matrix, I don't know what to tell you because that's what my mind immediately jumped to. I mean, are we really that far off from Blade Runner or the Matrix or Soldier or anything? You know, there's things to be said about the gut reaction versus the intellectual reaction. My gut reaction is burn the heretic, like get rid of this now. Intellectually as a scientist, I think it's interesting, but I don't want to see people being born with this. No, I mean even if like this is used to grow like artificial animals for meat consumption, I still wouldn't be down with that. It all seems very Logan's Runish to me. Okay, let's see. Ponythroat says, I spent an hour or two photoshopping buckets of KFC into photos of coal miners. Not sure what you're getting at there, sir. C Punk Messiah talks about, dick swinging truck guys calling other people pussies for not having a truck. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never driven a truck and I have no desire to. I like having fuel efficient cars. C Punk Messiah also says he dislikes radical leftists and MAGA cultists. I agree, sir. Ponythroat says, is there answer to Biden's brain is mush and he can't speak without a meth IV and more auto cues than Obama? I don't think so. It was more about the administration. Yeah, as if Biden's running the show, because he's not. Ponythroat, referring to artificial wombs, says finally a way to make women even more useless. Oh, women are not inherently useless. They've just been made useless by modern society. I mean, I think it should be a given that artificial machine wombs really should not be replacing actual like mothering and nurturing. And also, fun fact: apparently there was prototypes for artificial wombs as early as 1955. Let me look up who did that one. Okay, so okay, let's see. November 55. November 15th, 1955. Manuel Greenberg patents artificial uterus. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so Emmanuel Greenberg from America wrote various papers on the topic of the artificial womb. On the one hand, uh, I like, you know, America embracing its tradition of scientific progress, which is something we don't emphasize enough in our culture. On the other hand, God has abandoned us today. Punk Messiah, quoting Jurassic Park, says it best. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether they could, they never considered whether or not they should. Yes, yes, I agree. And then Japan got a little bit on it too, but yeah, this is America's fault. And speaking of science run amok in a radically different direction, the San Francisco Police Department says, yeah, let's make killer robots because there's enough antecedents in culture about that. Let me look up more specifics on that one. Yeah, so a draft policy set to be voted on next week may cement the San Francisco Police Department's authority to use robots for lethal force. I understand why, to an extent, why this is happening because San Francisco is full of, HIV infected feces and raving derelicts. So, I guess I understand why, you know, you want to have like death robots, but yeah, let's go into a little more specifics here. Okay, Board of Supervisors may approve next week in a policy in which San Francisco police can use death robots. The new policy, which defines how the SFPD is allowed to use military-style weapons, is put together by the police departments. Okay, yes, robot force. Let's see. Yeah, Peskin, the chair of the committee, he wanted to insert the sentence: "Robots cannot be used as a use of force against any person." Then the police struck out that suggestion. It then specifies that robots will only be used as a deadly force option when risk of loss of life to members of the public or officers are imminent and outweigh any other force option available to SFPD. Again, it seems like a good idea in theory. You don't want to risk people's lives unnecessarily. Then again, I would also argue that as a cop, I mean, you kind of should be risking your life necessarily, not unnecessarily. Uh, yeah, so then the article goes into how are robots used lethally. In 2016, there was the first American instance of a police robot killing a suspect. They strapped some plastique to it and they blew up a gunman who was barricaded inside a building. I mean, I guess it's just going to be like suicide bombing robots. I mean, I don't know when exactly, whether or not they have like just strapped guns to the robots. But I again, this is something I just have a gut revulsion towards because it's not like there's been hundreds and hundreds of movies, literature, comic books, video games, television shows, and every other kind of media warning us about what happens when you have police robots. This seems like a very bad idea. Okay, Ponythroat says, I thought Detroit would be the first to use lethal robots. Yeah, Robocop was a little bit off the mark there. Okay, Biff Slankovich says Murphy revisited, again referencing Robocops. Okay. Ponythroat says, given AI's history of having politically unacceptable pattern recognition abilities, this may not happen. Ponythroat says it's not really a robot any more than a grenade tied to an RC car is a robot. Well, I don't think it's remote controlled. I think these are like wait, okay, so at least in some cases, they are remote controlled. So I guess it's a little better because there is a human behind it. But again, I mean, I think it is going to very quickly just go into just, Ed 209 shooting people. But yes, Ponythroat does make a good point that given that AI has a history of politically incorrect pattern recognition, it may not happen. Yes, they might have to, uh, discontinue the death robots because they accidentally killed too many black people. Just kidding. But now that I'm thinking about it, that may take some of the heat off like human police officers. You can't blame the robots for killing people, so the police aren't racist. It's those damn robots. But yeah, so far it seems like it's just like remote control, like little buggies that that are being controlled by human police officers that are doing the killing. So we're probably like, maybe 15, 20 years off before we have actual AI robots, miscommunicating with people and just gunning them down. Okay, Ponythroat says, idiot police officer who joined to have power off the little people versus a robot with a machine gun running on Windows Vista. Who can get the high score? I mean, if it's like my memories of Windows Vista, it'll have to be rebooted under fire. So I'm still gonna have to go with the small penis police officer, flaunting his power. There is a deeply cynical side to me which says that like robots can't do any worse than like the average dickhead who becomes a police officer. I mean, I've always advocated like AI could run a government better than some people. So, you know, it would be really nice if we reformed the police so they were less shitty, but you know, until then, gotta have death robots. And I don't know what to think about the fact that they deliberately make the robots as like unnatural looking as possible. They got the little ones on wheels, then they have those big dogs, which so far I believe the big dogs are only used for you know, like just carrying things and sort of like limb movement tests. That's what Boston Dynamics is doing. But I guess people would be more likely to destroy the robots or less emotionally attached to them if they didn't look humanoid. Well, we shall see. We shall see what happens with the San Francisco murder robots. But yeah, let's leave robots behind and let's go to the blind fury of Mother Nature. In Canada, there is a bear who is just like the Chad of bears in this national park. So it's the Brant National Park, I believe. Yeah, the bear is called the Boss. He's the boss bear, and he is, just an absolute giga Chad by bear standards. So apparently, the boss bear, he survived being hit by a train. I'm going to presume that the train was totaled, but the boss was fine. Yeah, he also apparently has fathered 70% of all the bear cubs in the region. Yeah, he's a 700-pound grizzly bear roaming about Banff National Park, Banff. The hell kind of name is that? So, despite the fact that the national park has a very stupid name, a name that's literally the noise that Nightcrawler makes when he teleports, uh, yes, he's running the show. He kills and eats other bears, and he's just plowing all the sow bears. Yeah, 70% of the cubs are fathered by him, and yeah, he's kicking ass. Let me see if I can find some more about. Yes, some pictures. Yes, he's quite the robust bear. His grizzly bear's got the big trap muscles. Yeah, he's dominating that national park. He kills and eats black bears. And he's just, he has like all the women in his harem. And yes, I know that bears do not have harem structures in the traditional biological sense, but when you father an overwhelming majority of the cubs in the region, you have a harem. So I gotta clap my hands, show respect to the bear. He's achieving more with his life than I ever will. Okay, still have a lot of conversation about robot murder. Ponythroat says, I am in favor of making Ed 209s real. The best police robots have no obvious way to arrest people other than opening fire. Yes, one has to ask, how exactly was Ed 209 supposed to be an actual police officer? Then, of course, the whole point of that character was that he was essentially supposed to be a military robot equivalent of 1980s American automobiles. He was over designed to look cool and not really function. That's literally what the stop motion animator said. He wanted it to be like a robot version of General Motors cars in the 80s. C-Punk Messiah says the kids who became cops were the ones who would reset the game console if they were losing. Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, for most I don't know, most cops I've known, they really are the kind of kids who are like bullies in school. They just become cops. It's like you can legally bully people. I mean, there's some good cops, but a lot of cops are just garbage. Biff Slankovich talks about his Canadian. Uh, he retracted it, but he was talking about his experience in Canadian national parks. He saw a bear, you know, kicking ass in Banff. So, I don't know when you were in the national parks, but it may have been. It may have been. Yeah, so I'm looking at videos of the boss bear, also known as Bear 122. They got an ear tag on him. Yeah, he's quite the Chad. It's good to see that the Bears are doing better. I talked a few streams ago, probably a few months ago actually, about that black bear Hank the Tank in California who's really just getting brazen. He's just breaking into people's houses and eating food. But yeah, he was exonerated because there was actually multiple bears doing that. So yeah, he should be left alone. Let the bears do their bear business. Hey, Ponythroat says GM cars can't climb stairs. That is true. I mean, let's all just have a moment of silence for the time when America could make decent cars. Yeah, that time is long past. By the way, speaking of, if you haven't seen that movie Ford versus Ferrari, uh, yeah, you should check it out. That's a good movie. It's about the Le Mans, 1965, I think it was. Yeah, and it shows that America can make good cars if we set our minds to it, but we usually don't. Okay, Bislankovich says he was in the Banff National Park. He saw bears knocking over dumpsters. Yeah, there's See, Punk Messiah says bears are absolute units. So one that dominates the other bears is the shadliest of units. Yes, yes, he is. That's why he's the boss. He's the boss of bears. Ponythroat says that that bear's eating some really hot porridge. Yes, yes, he is. I mean, I assume that the boss bear will eventually parlay his fame into a successful Hollywood career, much like Bart the bear. And yeah, I know that Bart's son or whatever is currently doing movies and stuff. But I don't know. I haven't seen too many bear movies nowadays. Yeah, sadly, the one in The Revenant was not a real bear. It was a animated bear. All right, so let's move on from the bears and killer robots. Now we're getting to the lighter side of things. We're going to the pop culture news and general silliness, Twitter silliness. Uh, let me first of all, let me see if there was any wages posting L's because I always like to do that. Let's see. Okay. Let's see anything special in wages posting L's. Nah, not really. There was a little something. It was like my job gave me this mug, and it's like an XL mug, and it says "freak in the sheets." That's kind of embarrassing. But nothing really big happened with the wages. Wages are still taking up the ass in this country. But again, what else is new? Hey. Bonythroat says, why were the bowls of porridge presumably made at the same time at all different temperatures? I don't know. That the Goldilocks story kind of uh, defies physics and thermodynamics. Anyway, I moved that we changed the Goldilocks story to that to the Terry Toons Goldilocks story where the bears are all like stereotypically Italian, and the father is mad if somebody touch his spaghetti. And for the record, I saw that cartoon before the other people did. C-Punk Messiah says, I'm a bit surprised bear-style kung fu was never a thing. I actually do know why. It's because, I mean, when it comes to, like, apex predators in China specifically, you know, the tigers and stuff are kind of more notable than the bears. I mean, nobody's really being inspired to fight by pandas. They also got those sun bears, or whatever they call them. Let me look at that. Yeah, they got those sun bears, which are pretty small. Yeah, like I just feel like if you're an ancient Chinese kung fu man, you know, if you're gonna look around for predators, like the tiger is obviously much more potent. That's what you're gonna do. See, the tiger is one of the 5 animals of traditional kung fu. I believe it's tiger, leopard, crane. Uh, let's see what we got here. All right, so yeah, it's tiger, crane, leopard, dragon, and snake. It's not bears. Yeah, so let's just jump right into the pop culture side of things. Twitter was a bit aflutter because Todd Crisley goes to jail, and I still only have the vaguest idea of who this man is. He's got that show, Crisley Knows Best. Knows best about what? I don't know. By the vaguest idea, like about 5 years ago, I was with a lady, and she wanted to watch Crisley Knows Best. We were in a hotel, so I couldn't really go anywhere, so I had to watch that crap. The show didn't really give me any indication of who this man is and why he has a television show. Like, okay, I see that he's a deeply closeted Southern dandy who's rich and has a family or whatever. His daughter likes to wear giant hats for, well, I mean, it is the South, so, you know, giant hats are kind of a given. But why is this not particularly interesting or notable person on the television? I mean, you might as well give me a TV show. I think my life is about as interesting as this asshole's. Anyway, Todd Crisley is going to prison for financial fraud, up to 10 years, I believe. I mean, I would make a very D-Class A joke about him probably being into prison, but I'm not going to do that. Whoops, I just did. Yeah, by the way, if anybody knows who this guy is, yeah, please inform me. C-Punk Messiah says Kumaryu Karate sounds way cooler. Uh, I believe bears are typically associated with Hokkaido. You know, if my meager knowledge of Japanese culture from watching the animus is correct. You know, it's like when I think of Hokkaido, what do I think of? I think of that statue of that bear with a fish in its mouth, and that's literally it. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go to the bathroom. You can talk about martial arts and bears. Okay, let's see. No comments. You can all. All right. Ponythroat says, does bear style kung fu involve a 500-pound sensei who sleeps 4 months straight and then eats garbage? Well, I would have to assume so, sir. I don't know if I guess if you had to like very quickly determine like bear style kung fu, I guess it would be like shuai jiao or something, which is the traditional Chinese wrestling, which is actually technically a form of jacket to wrestling, so it's like an antecedent to judo and jujitsu. So I guess that would be like bear style kung fu because I think bears are more likely to kind of wrestle around. Okay, Ponythroat says I can literally hear Larsen tinkling. Yes, I expel urine just like everyone else. Biff Slankovich says he likes the bear dog from Russia. I believe you mean the Caucasian Shepherd. Yes, that is a very large dog. Not to be confused with the Borzoi, which is another nice Russian dog. It's a sight hound, also known as the Russian wolfhound. The Borzoi has become something of a folk hero on the internet for allegedly, killing a pit bull that was attacking a baby, or something like that. Yeah, I'm sorry. Borzois are really goofy looking, but apparently they can kick some ass. Okay, Ponythroat says you piss very loudly. Well, I'll tell you about my apartment setup. My desk is right next to the bathroom. Yes, as the much more successful podcaster Colt Cabana would put it, live from the studio apartment. Pung Messiah says the Chad Borzoi versus the Virgin Pitbull. Yes. Ponythroat says it's the favorite dog of white women, no doubt. Yeah, let's not go there. The Caucasian Shepherd is a large dog. It weighs up to 70 kilograms. A bitch ranges from 67 to 70 centimeters at the withers and 75 centimeters for a dog. I like how a female dog is a bitch, but a male dog is just a dog. I don't know who names these things, but they ought to like fix that. Anyway, evidently from the comments, nobody else knows who Todd Crisley is either, which is good because from what I saw, that show was garbage. They should make a show about the amazing Criswell. That'd be better than Crisley Knows Best. I mean, yeah, let's make the amazing Criswell show. I mean, what the hell's Tim Burton doing nowadays? Can't be that busy. Yeah, he's been on autopilot since the early 2000s. But I digress. Yeah, speaking of Kino, Kino, Marvel Studios says that they don't want to hire people who are intimately familiar with and fans of the source material, the comic books. Let me repeat that. A bunch of people who are making comic book based movies are going out of their way to not hire people who are very familiar with the source material. I don't understand, like, why would you not want somebody who's familiar with the source material? It's like, let's say you're making a movie adaptation of a book. Like, would you not read the book? And yes, I'm aware that does happen sometimes. Like, I know for a fact that, for example, when Walt Disney was adapting the Jungle Book, he went out of his. I mean, he did read the book, but he went out of his way to say, like, don't read it to his animators. But in general, you would think that you'd want to like read the source material. If you give me one second, I'm gonna look up why exactly Marvel came up with this genius concept. Okay, let's see. Okay. Oh, by the way, they're doing a new Trigon. I never actually watched the original Trigon. I probably should at some point. Okay, let's see. Like I know Trigon was like hot shit back in the '90s. You know, in like the early days of like anime fandom. But I honestly never got around to watching it. Bear in mind, I was a child in the '90s, so if you're watching anime, you're watching Dragon Ball and shit like that. Uh, let's see. Where the hell is that thing? I mean, there's another thing about Marvel Studios, which I'm going to talk about after this. If I could find what the hell I'm looking for. Okay, here it is. Yeah. Marvel Studios considers it a red flag if prospective writers are the fans of the original comics. They want to hire people who are out of the culture. Let me see what the reasoning is here. Okay, let's see. So there was a guy, what's his name? Nathan Moore. He's a executive producer. He went on some podcast, and he was asked, "Is there like some kind of boot camp that you do with the filmmakers to ingratiate them into the Marvel mythos and knowing all the things they need to know?" And he said no, noting that some Marvel writers grew up reading and collecting the comics, like Joe Russo and Nick Cassavetes and Ryan Coogler. Moore told the podcast host, a lot of times we're pitched writers who love the comics, and to me that's a red flag. I don't want you to have a pre-existing idea of what it is because you grew up with the comics and that's what you want to recreate. I want somebody who's going to go hard on the material. We should look at it another way. I mean, I find this a bit absurd. To just, eschew like decades of storytelling. I mean, as somebody put it best, somebody whose name I can't recall, and let me look that up. Anyway, while I'm looking up who said this, the guy really said it best about Jack Kirby. He said Jack Kirby, is not subtle. His writing is the scream of mythology. And writing is I mean, he was certainly the artist. Again, that's a whole issue we don't have to go into now about who can really be credited with more of the Marvel mythos, Stan or Jack. Yeah, that was Tom King, whoever that is. Yes, Jack Kirby's writing is not the subtlety of Hemingway. It is the scream of mythology. But yeah, screw all that mythology. We just got to throw it all out for, we got to emasculate Thor and what have you. Yeah, this is a. Gee, I wonder why the movies have been going downhill since Endgame. Okay, we got some comments here. Ponythroat says you could be like a Twitch streamer where you don't get up from your desk to pee. Yes, yes. Who was it? Was it like Beardson Beardly or one of those like fascist like assholes streamers? It was either him or like one of the guys in his call, like a group Discord chat. He literally just like let it rip in his chair. He just like took a dump in his pants, like on stream. I don't remember exactly who it was, and I don't feel like looking it up. But yeah, like, did you want me to be like that? I mean, I have some dignity, sir. I know how to use the potty. Ponythroat also says he's never heard of Todd Crisley. Yeah, it's not great. C-Punk Messiah says, did you hear about Jason David Frank? Yes, I did. Jason David Frank, of course, the Green Power Ranger. He unfortunately passed away this past week. And he wasn't that old either. He was only like 40 something. I mean, it's obviously very sad. By all accounts, he's a very nice person. Jason David Frank. Obviously, he's not doing Power Ranger stuff anymore. He has a chain of like gyms and martial arts schools that he runs in Texas. I mean, I know very little about him other than the fact that he makes those shirts that says like, Jesus didn't tap out. I just have to point out the obvious that he was not physically capable of tapping out. His hands were nailed down, sir. But yes, rest in peace, Jason David Frank. Okay, we got some people talking about like internet streamers not knowing how to use the potty. C-Punk Messiah says Jared Genesis pissed in a bottle, and he talked about it. Well, Jared Genesis is just a terrible human being. I did a video on him a while back. Ponythroat says, I don't know why, but a lot of streamers have piss drugs. Yes, they do. I don't know why people aren't potty trained. Like over this past Thanksgiving, I got to see my niece, who's a 6 months old babby, and she can be excused for not knowing how to use a toilet, but you're a grown man. Like you should know how to use a potty. Ponythroat versus the dirty craft briefs. Yes, Chris Chan, of course, is the pioneer of letting it rip in your pants in on public streams. But apparently Beardson Beardly did too. Or if it was not him, it was one of his boys. It was definitely in one of his streams. It was that whole like clown show of like the America First, like not overt but totally overt fascist. Like Nick Fuentes and Beardson and all of those losers. I think Ethan Ralph is part of that too. Yeah, they're just a goddamn train wreck. Nick Fuentes, of course, being the barely closeted homosexual who literally spends all his time like eating McDonald's and living with his gay cat boyfriend. But hey, at least Nick Fuentes can like groom himself halfway decently. Ponythroat says these guys know how to use a toilet. They just reject it on a philosophical level. Yeah, this person who I'm referring to, who may or may not have been Beardson Beardly, yeah, he apparently has some like really fancy gamer chair. One of those chairs that has like the sound of vibrations, and I think it has like a fridge too. You have this really nice chair, and he just destroyed it by crapping on it. I think my listeners are of a higher caliber, but yeah, like please, if you don't know how to use the potty, please learn how. Ponythroat says, I'm amazed Darkside Phil never shattered his pants on stream. Yeah, I mean, the thing with Phil is, Phil's a buffoon, but I don't think he's like, foregoing the basic tenets of hygiene. He makes an ass of himself, but more in the philosophical and emotional sense. He doesn't just let it rip on stream. Wow, this is a hell of a segue. We went from talking about Marvel Studios. And yeah, I know that there's issues and problematic things with the original comics, but come on, it was the 50s and 60s. You need to relax. But yeah, speaking of Marvel Studios and roundabout, going back to weirdo internet people, yeah, there was a bit of a kerfuffle about that. Quentin Tarantino has joined Martin Scorsese and several other, auteur filmmakers in that he said that none of the people who star in those comic book movies, none of them are movie stars because you pay to see the character, not the star. In other words, he's saying like, you know, people, if like, Leonardo DiCaprio or Denzel Washington or Tom Cruise makes a new movie, people say, I'm gonna go see that new Denzel Washington or Tom Cruise movie. Nobody says like I'm gonna go see that new Chris Evans movie or whatever. They say I'm gonna see that new Captain America movie. You're paying for the character and the the warm fuzzy feeling of knowing about the mythos. You're not paying to see the star. And he is absolutely right. Tarantino is as much of a hunched over weenie Tarantino is with the with the feats and all that. He is right. And even Anthony Mackie, who plays the Falcon in those Marvel movies, he said the same thing. He said like I'm not a movie star. There are no real movie stars nowadays. You're paying for the brand. You're not paying for the actor. I'm inclined to agree. Uh, okay, we got some comments here. C Punk Messiah says Darkside Phil whacked off on stream. Well, I did not know that. But even so, I feel like that's somewhat less shameful than, crapping your pants on stream. Ponythroat says there are pictures on the web of Albert Fish being tied to the world's first gamer chair. Yes, I must have been pretty uncomfortable with all those needles in his taint. Oh, fun fact. You know who was actually involved in the Albert Fish trial? The defense's chief expert witness was psychologist Frederick Wortham. Which actually, funny enough, ties back into comic books because Frederick Wortham was, despite all his work on, the insanity defense, he actually did a lot of work in, desegregating the military. But yeah, he is best known for the book Seduction of the Innocent, which, implemented the Comics Code Authority. Yeah, he wanted to plea the insanity defense for Albert Fish, Fred Wortham. Yes, it all ties back to the comic books. Mr. Deed says, come on, Simu Liu is a real star. And I was just about to get to that, sir. While Anthony Mackie agrees with the notion that he's not a real movie star, Simu Liu, was fucking pissed about what, Scorsese and Tarantino said. Tarantino said that, Marvel stars are not real movie stars. Scorsese said that, they're not real movies, they're theme park rides. Yeah, Simu, he got mad. Yeah, he got really pissed off the notion that he's not a movie star. He said that, these, Kino people, they should be eschewed because, somebody like him could never have been a movie star before superhero movies. He said, like, we should stop heralding, this golden age of new Hollywood because it was all just a bunch of white people. He did admit that, he did like those movies. And spoilers, any director worth his salt in Hollywood today idolizes the new Hollywood. But, yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with this notion that, Simu Liu can never have been a movie star before now. He said, back in the day, my highest ambition would be like, wow, I could maybe get beaten up by the hero in a movie. Which I do have to laugh at because I've long realized that that would basically be my highest peak in a movie because, I don't have, the leading man looks. But, Simu, I'm gonna have to, as a child of the '90s who watched a lot of '80s and '90s martial arts movies, I'm gonna have to dispute that, sir. I mean, yeah, it's like, yeah, there was no Asian men being stars before you, pal. Yeah, Bruce Lee wasn't a star. Sho Kosugi and Jackie Chan, was not stars. Brandon Lee was not a star. What are you, high? Yeah, I'm sure it has nothing to do with you being a complete charisma vacuum, Simu. Yeah, I didn't see Shang-Chi not because of anything relating to Simu, but because, having read the actual Shang-Chi comics, the movie is not the comics. I'm sorry that I'm ingratiated into the Marvel culture. I'm a member of the Merry Marvel Marching Society, as Stan would have put it. But yeah, sorry, I didn't have any interest in this half-assed, not Shang-Chi movie. God damn it, Shang-Chi was literally sired by Fu Manchu, you know, taking a white American woman as a concubine to sire the ultimate warrior. That's what I want to see in the comics, and you failed. Oh yeah, fun fact, Stan Lee at one point wanted to actually make a Shang-Chi movie with Brandon Lee as the eponymous character in the '80s. That didn't get off the ground, unfortunately. But yeah, you're not really a movie star, Simu. Oh, by the way, speaking of Martin Scorsese made a movie in 1997 with a 100% Asian cast, just FYI. That, of course, would be Kundun, which is about the Dalai Lama, which is a very good movie. I recommend it, by the way. Okay. We have some comments here. Ponythroat says, what if you shit and nut at the same time on stream? Is that shameful or is that an achievement? If you're orgasming and pooping at the same time, you have some deep-seated psychological issues, sir. Ponythroat says, I don't care about Shang-Chi. I want Shang Tsung the movie. Uh, yes. Speaking of Shang Tsung, yeah, you see that new Mortal Kombat? I don't know who that brick wall they hired to play Shang Tsung was, but he sucked. I can't remember a single thing he did in that movie. I mean, Kerry Tagawa is, Kerry Tagawa is my Shang Tsung. And yeah, I'm just gonna go out and say it. I think Kerry Tagawa is legitimately one of the great villain actors. I think he's up there with, Boris Karloff and speaking of people who played Fu Manchu, he's up there with Christopher Lee, another Fu Manchu. Uh, he's up there with like Vincent Price and those guys. Mr. Deed says Simu is authentic. He's a Chinese guy playing a Korean guy on Kim's Convenience. Yeah. Steampunk Messiah says Donnie Yen would have been a great Shang-Chi in his youth. Yes, he would have. And, going back to Simu, yeah, Mr. Simu Liu complains an awful lot about the internet trolls, disparaging him, considering that, he was an angry Reddit incel. He was on one of those, whiny Asian sex bullshit forums, which, you all know I hate a lot. And he apparently made some rather tetchy comments on those Reddit forums. My opinion of Asian sex bullshit has not changed. It is a real issue, but considering it is literally the only issue facing Asian people, every single Asian issue boils down to, the hunched over, pathetic weenie stereotype of Asian men. Every single Asian problem ultimately boils down to that stereotype. Seems to me there's a very easy solution to it. And to his credit, Simu did get in some pretty decent shape for that Shang-Chi movie. I mean, not that good a shape. I honestly think I look about as good as he did. But, I will give him some respect for that. Okay, Pony Throat referring to the new Shang Tsung. The undoing as a prophecy has begun. It's not as punchy as it has begun, nor is it as punchy as your soul is mine. Speaking of that new Mortal Kombat movie, you know what that movie didn't have? An actual Mortal Kombat tournament. That whole movie felt like a first act building up to, the second act. And yeah, I'm just gonna say it. There's no Johnny Cage in that new movie, and that's an instant loss for me. You gotta have Johnny Cage. With that being said, the new Mortal Kombat was better than Mortal Kombat Annihilation. For, I mean, actually, Mortal Kombat Annihilation is a terrible, terrible movie, but it is very entertaining. Whereas I was just kind of bored with that new Mortal Kombat. It had its moments, but yeah, the original Mortal Kombat is still the best. Honestly, I still think it's like the best video game movie ever made. Pony Throat says the virgin, whiny Reddit virgin versus the comparatively Chad, repulsive 4chan neckbeard. Yes, that is true. C-Punk Messiah says, I'm noticing that Asian Americans who grow their hair out tend to break out of the Asian sex bullshit. I mean, it's what's the most important tenet that I say in my videos? Cut your fucking bowl cut. Yeah, I mean, there's things are looking up. I mean, the young girls do like the K-pop. I mean, I would prefer if Asian sex bullshit wasn't defeated by prancing gay boys, but you got to take what you can get, I suppose. And hey, I rock the pompadour. Girls like the pompadour. I mean, I've had so many people say I look like Elvis Presley, so I'm winning. And I may actually be meeting a young lady for lunch today. Actually, she just said no because she's hungover. Thanksgiving, she got pretty drunk. White girl wasted. Woo! Let me just text her possibly tomorrow then. And yes, now that I'm not taking this lady, technically I shouldn't say she's white girl wasted. Apparently she's actually Persian, or perhaps half Persian. I mean, she looks pretty white, but then again, Iran means land of the Aryan for a reason. But I digress. She had a little too much of that Shiraz. Okay, Ponythroat says the new Mortal Kombat may not have had Johnny Cage, but had Cole Young. That Mortal Kombat classic. They should have had Su Hao and Darius in it. Yes, yeah, they had all the great characters like Nitara and Reiko. You got to have Reiko because Nathan Jones needs work. Ponythroat says he once had waist-length hair, but with being had homeschooled. I will not inquire as to that. Yeah, so in conclusion, screw Simu Liu. Again, I'm not the first person to point this out, but why are Asian American actors the lamest fucking people? Nobody wants Aquafina in anything, damn it. I mean, it's a kind of a joke amongst Asian people that Hollywood really does go out of their way to get the least charismatic, unattractive Asians they can get and put them in their movies. Hell, you know who should have been Shang-Chi? The comedian Ronnie Chang. Yeah, just get him in the weight room and just have him just unleash his like rage of like, comedic fury on the bad guys. Like that's who should have been Shang-Chi. Yeah, just have him get in the weight room, then have his mom try to ask him about computer advice. He'll punch his way through Thanos' goddamn stomach like Liu Kang. Okay, speaking of Kino, uh, James Cameron, for some inexplicable reason, made a sequel to Avatar. And apparently, it's so expensive with the advertising and the budget itself, it's going to have to break $2 billion to break even. Oh boy, that's not happening, Jimmy. That is not happening. Yeah, I guess James Cameron's going to have to put his next submarine voyage on hiatus. It's becoming increasingly obvious that he's doing movies just so he can fund his like little, adventures, which is cool, I guess. He does movies to fund submarine expeditions, which is a marked contrast to Orson Welles, who does Frozen Pea commercials so he can make his movies. But yeah, was anybody demanding Avatar 2? Ponythroat says, Kano is my favorite Japanese MK character. Yes, he's referring to how Kano was like half Japanese, half white in the early conceptions of the game. But then he was made Australian because Trevor Goddard did such a good job in the movie. Trevor Goddard, of course, was not Australian. He was an East London Cockney, but he kind of fudged an Australian accent. And there it goes. The Australian accent, of course, sounds remarkably similar to a working class English accent due to Australia's, criminal heritage, of course. Ponythroat says, was there an appetite for an Avatar sequel even 1 year after the original? No, there was not. C-Punk Messiah says, I was unimpressed after the first Avatar movie. I mean, I saw it in theater, so it looked nice. But then, a few days later, you realize you've seen this thing, like, done to death a million times. Why, yes, I have seen Dances with Wolves, John Carter of Mars, Pocahontas, Little Big Man, and yet on and on and on. Lawrence of Arabia. Yeah, speaking of John Carter, I like the John Carter movie. I don't care what anyone says. The movie was good. And yeah, I do find something deeply distasteful about how the originator of all these, like, space adventure movies, just got dicked over. C-Punk Messiah says Dances with Smurfs. Yeah, wasn't that literally the South Park episode that made fun of Avatar? Alrighty. And finally, in pop culture news, today, November 26th, is apparently Charles Schulz's birthday. And many it would be his 100th birthday if he were still alive. He of course passed away in 2000. Yeah, so many cartoonists are doing tributes to old Sparky. I of course always like Charlie Brown and his, you know, melancholic shenanigans. Yeah, there's a couple of comic strips that are posted in this Twitter thread where it's like Charlie Brown lays awake in bed and he's like, "Where did my life go wrong?" And then I hear a voice say, "That's going to take a couple of days to talk about." There's nothing. Yes, this story about a very sad loser child became a hallowed American tradition. There's something I find very amusing about that. I guess we can all relate to the idea. So yes, in honor of Charles Schulz's birthday, let's all find a very sad child and emotionally abuse him. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't do that. All right, so that does it for my prepared remarks. Unless I can find something very interesting on Twitter right now. Uh, let's see, we got uh, people are still talking about the England and USA game. Uh, yeah, okay, yeah, nothing really that interesting is happening right now. Some guy named Hovain died. I have no idea who that is. So yeah, that does it for my prepared remarks. Hello, Mitchell Valentino. Say what you will in the last few minutes, and then I gotta head out of here. Ponythor says, let's not emotionally abuse a child, let's physically abuse one. No, Charlie Brown was rarely physically abused unless you count the football thing. He was just emotionally beaten down by life. Anyway, yeah, with regards to Charlie Brown, I still consider Weapon Brown to be like canonical. I mean, apparently there's legal issues which mean they're never going to make a second Peanuts movie, which I actually liked. We can always make Weapon Brown a movie. Yeah, I'll give you people a couple minutes to say your last points. Okay, Mr. Deed says Charlie Brown today would be a school shooter. I mean, that's a possibility. I mean, thankfully, this country was a little more sane in the 50s, so we didn't have that going on. It says, and to think Charlie Brown became the Batman villain Kite Man. I honestly cannot think of what Kite Man looks like, so I gotta look that up. Okay, let's see. Kite Man is a super criminal enemy of. Huh. His name is Charles Brown. I guess that's it then. All right, yeah. So I guess we can either assume that Batman is canonical to Charlie Brown, and Charlie Brown grows up and becomes Kite Man, or we can assume that Weapon Brown is canonical and he grows up to be a cyborg super soldier. Also, oh god, I just realized that it was probably deliberate that they made Kite Man named Charles Brown. He first debuted in 1960, so Peanuts was already 10 years into its run, and Kite Man is a loser who is associated with kites. That was deliberate. Okay, C Punk Messiah says Karate Baka Isekai. I might have to look into that. All right, let's kind of wear the stream down now. Okay, it seems like nobody has anything else to say. So, for Larsen Halleck, this has been Larsen Halleck, and you all have a good day.